Hello to everybody that is watching. Welcome to another installment of Crossing Home. I'm honored to be here with you today. Hope everybody's had a great week and looking forward to getting another week started. Joe Tatoris graduated from Texas A&M University in 1970. After graduation, he moved back to Beaumont, Texas, where he was from. He started a sandwich shop. This sandwich shop had 4 employees total. As he tried to make this business work over the years, he chased every dollar he could. That's what they taught him in business school, was to chase the dollar. His life changed in 1995 when he heard a speaker named David Glass. David was the hand-picked successor for Walmart by Sam Walton himself. David gave a presentation that day entitled Servant Leadership. It blew Joe away. Up to that point, he thought that a servant was someone who swept the floor, cleaned the tables, did all the manual work, while a leader was just the one who sat back and observed what the servant was doing. Joe realized that he had it all wrong, and he found out that in business school they don't teach you about being a servant leader. So he took these practices and he applied them to his business. As he implemented these practices, his business began to explode, and he now has over 300 stores and over 12,000 employees in over 30 states. This restaurant is called Jason's Deli. Many of you may have eaten there. People suddenly started working at Jason's not for a job, but for a career. He's had employees that have been there for 15, 20, 30 years or more. He's had CEO buddies that ask him, "Where do you find your employees?" And he always responds with, "I find them the same place that you do." But what happens on the inside is what makes it different. It's how you treat people that make all the difference in the world. So maybe you'll own your own business, or maybe you'll be the CEO of a big company, or maybe you won't. Maybe you are still young and you're a part of a sports team, or maybe you have a job where you're a part of a group that's in charge of something at work. One of these days, if you haven't already, maybe you'll become a parent and you'll be a leader of your children. Whatever the case may be, you are a leader, and don't let anybody ever tell you that you aren't, because you are. Someone somewhere is watching you, and you will lead them in some way. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and as we go along, we'll come back to these questions towards the end. But what do we do when we strike out? How do we respond? What do we do when we make an error? What's our reaction? What do we do when a teammate makes an error? What do we do when a teammate makes a base running mistake? Or what do we do when a teammate hasn't had a hit in a while and is getting down on themselves? What do we do when we see a friend having a bad day? What do we do when we know someone is going through a hard time? Do we feel like that people owe us something, or do we feel like that we owe them something? These are all legit questions to ask ourselves, and sometimes we have to do some searching inside us to figure out what kind of leader we are, what kind of teammates we are. And the hard part about doing that is sometimes when we do that self-reflection, we figure out that sometimes we're not a very good teammate, or we're not a very good leader. But what makes a good leader? Well, to find that answer, we have to go to the GOAT leader, the best that there ever was, and that is Jesus Christ. John 13:12-17 is a brief part of a story that a lot of us have heard before, but have we ever really thought about what that means? It took me a long time before I ever really dove into what that means, but it says this: "When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you?" He being Jesus, asked them, "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for this is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." Did you catch that? The greatest man to ever walk the earth took time to wash his disciples' feet, to be a servant. Why did he do this? To be an example of how a leader does things. These disciples were to go out into the world and share the good news of Jesus with people, but first, he had to teach them what true leadership looks like. No one, regardless of their position, title, or status, or anything else, is better than anyone else. This is sometimes hard for us to swallow as people. Sometimes we feel like as a leader that we're on a pedestal, or that we're higher than other people, or that we're better than other people. But like so many other examples of things in the Bible, if it's good enough for Jesus, why isn't it good enough for us? So how does this apply to our life or to sports? Well, going back to those questions that I asked a little while earlier. How do we respond when we struggle at the plate, or in the field, or on the mound? Do we pout? Do we set a bad example for our teammates? Or do we continue to grind and keep a positive attitude and be that leader for our team? You might say, well, how can I serve others during a ball game? We're just playing a ball game. How can I look to serve others in that? What about when a teammate's on the bases when the last out's made? Do we make sure that we take them their glove or hat or glasses or whatever else they may use in the field, or do we just worry about ourselves? What about we see a teammate struggling at the plate and really getting down themselves? Do we think to ourselves, man, they stink, glad that's not me, glad I'm hitting better than that? Or do we go and offer them encouraging words just like we would want someone to do for us? Do we go lift them up and give them some confidence and tell them that the next at-bat will be better? Or do we just worry about ourselves and how we're doing? What about when that pitcher's struggling and we're in the field? We've all been there, the long innings where they don't throw strikes. Do we stand out there and yell, come on, throw strikes, like the pitcher doesn't already know what he's supposed to be doing in the first place? Or do we call time and do we go to that pitcher and let them know that we have their back as a defense and we'll make those plays for them and be an encouragement to them and help them to throw strikes? What about life in general? Are we uplifting to others? Do we show them love and compassion? No matter what our job is or our title or anything else that matters with status in life, we are a leader. We are around people every day and we will lead them whether we realize that or not. We have the ability to show people the right way to do all things. We have to be conscious about these things in order to fully use the servant leadership gifts that God gave all of us. Those gifts may look different to each person. Not everybody's the same, but we all have them. We just have to find our gifts and make sure that we use our gifts that God gave us to the best of our abilities. So this applies to life as well, not just sports. Are we an encourager? Do we lift others up? Do we help teammates? Do we help friends? Are we a servant leader or a selfish leader? Think about that for a minute. Are we a servant leader or a selfish leader? We all know the difference between servant and selfish. But do we apply that to leadership? There's a big difference in the two. And there's a lot of both types of leaders out there. There are those that are out there with a title or a position and they're in it for their own benefit. And then there are those that are always looking at how they can help others, how they can serve others and lead them in the right way. And I challenge each and every one of us that are listening to this and everybody out there, whether it be in sports or in life, do not be a selfish leader. Be a servant leader. Be a servant leader not only because it makes everyone around us better, but that's what God wants from us. Once again, if it's good enough for Jesus, why wouldn't it be good enough for us? I hope that everyone has a great week, and please go out and be a servant leader. Use that as a way for people to see Jesus through us. That's just another way that we can share the good news of Jesus Christ. Hope everybody has a great week. Good luck and God bless.